Good evening, all. How's everybody doing? Hope you are well. Hey, Jeffrey, how are you? Good evening, Brad. I'm very well. I'm currently smoking my Savinelli Autograph, and in it I have a mixture of St. James Woods from 2013, High Pipes and Bees, and some London Fog from the beginning of the year. And it's a nice mixture. Anybody smoking anything nice? And I'm drinking some tea. Hi, Jack. Solani, that is, I guess, Pipes and Bees, but aged Birdie Flake. I have tried that. Don't think I liked it. Balkan Supreme. Now that's got a really good reputation out there. Hello, Boris. Hello, Plume and Barrel. Interesting name, Plume and Barrel. What's the significance of that? La Gloria Cubana Britannica Extra 2017. Yeah, that's been a long time in coming. I saw AJ Patel sticking pictures up that he's finally received it. I haven't got one of those yet. I would have picked one up, I guess, in one of the shops in St. James's, but none of them are open at the moment. Well, it should be if it's 3 years old. Oh, you're talking about Balkan Supreme being good stuff, yeah. Isn't that a bulk blend from Peter Stockaby, or am I getting mixed up with something else? Hey, Tim. Salters, are they open or you did it online? How you doing, Mike? Online. I wouldn't mind trying one of those. How much do they cost? What is it? La Gloria Cubana. What size is it? Let me guess how much it is. Don't tell me. Tell me the size. What's the Vitola? £48 ring gauge. Oh, don't tell me £48, please. So is that a 48 ring gauge, Jack? .48 ring, okay, and length? What is it, 5.5, 6 inches? I think I've seen pictures of it. Is it a torpedo? A Figurado, yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna guess, let's see. I'm gonna guess about 30 quid, £35, something like that. £30, right. Yeah, it's about right for a regional. it'd be interesting to see if any of the European online sellers get hold of them and what they sell them for. Because the regionals that I get usually are from European sellers, from Spain, for instance. Escudo and a Cub Vision. Good. Mike from Briar Blues will be proud of you. Yeah, so when I buy my regionals online, usually from Spain or Belgium, for instance, the La Gloria Cubana, the Spanish regional edition, they were about £8 or £9 each when I bought them. Okay, they were shorter, they're 4-inch cigar, but with a 50 ring gauge. So this one is 50 ring gauge by 110mm, which in old money is about 4¼ inches. And that, so to me, I would, any time of the day, I'd just get more of these. And it's always good to try one, because they are different blends. So it's always good to try one, and I always like to try and get new cigars on my channel at some point, to have a first impressions video up. So I'll probably try and get one or two maybe, but it's a no-brainer for me. I don't smoke cigars for hours on end, so this one, will last me 3/4 of an hour to an hour, and it's just about right for me. Morning, Brian. See you talk about cigars and Brian crops up. Yeah, it's always good to pick up two at least, if you can. One to try, and then a second one to kind of let it sleep for a bit, and then make a comparison. Brian, have you tried the new La Gloria Cubana, the British regional? I forget, Brian, are you based in the States or here? Hey Josh, how you doing? Actually, Josh, I've got some square shanks in, some square stems in. So hopefully I'll get on with yours soon. And I will bear in mind a blonde one of those or similar. Just while you're on, Josh, is that a little bit short, or are you happy to have it short, or do you want it a little bit longer to match the other ones a bit? Hey John, how you doing? John Murray, good evening, welcome. Thank you for joining. The one with the green stem. Right, that one actually sold the other day. So this is more of a Rhodesian shape. And this one really did work out very nice. Lovely grain. And the shape just worked out well. These rings, really cool. Worked out well as well. This one's actually after a repeat customer of mine. Must have about 10 of my pipes already overseas. Oh yeah, the sandblast. I still have to decide what to do with it. Let me find that. Here we are. It's going to be hard for me to sell this one actually. It's the first one that I'll have in my repertoire. That's, although I haven't sandblasted it myself, but still. Sandblast on this one is gorgeous. I'm thinking I'll probably do something like this in terms of a color. What do you think? I mean, I could just try putting a shellac over the top of this as it is and see what it looks like. And if I don't like it, I can then always put the sort of the tan stain over it. I should keep it raw. The problem with keeping it raw is that it gets dirty. I'd still have to put something over it to protect it. I mean, it will color up with time anyway, but if I don't protect it in some way, it'll just get dirty. Not just darker and richer from the oily sort of the oil in your skin, but it will get dirty, and I don't want that to happen. The thing is as well, is what I've noticed. Yeah, I Havanas are excellent tan. Occasionally I've bought more than one box, and indeed if you order more than one box, it's more likely to get stopped. But I have to say, I've been buying from I Havanas for a couple of years now. I've probably ordered from them, I don't know, maybe 20 times, maybe 15 times, and never had a problem. And one box I got through from them which was very green, they were damaged as well, and no problems at all. I sent them back and they gave me a refund, and they were very good about it. You just have to be, if you're one of these guys that you know, you need everything instantly, then maybe not, you know, because the wheels turn a little bit slower with online cigar purchases. And what I would say is this: the first time you buy from I Havanas, it might take time, because I think they like to just make sure that they don't get any issues with credit card fraud. You know, it's probably so common online that money gets taken back from them with dodgy credit cards. So the first order I made, it took a month to get through. Then after that, it was almost like clockwork, 7 to 10 days, and that was it. Never had to wait any longer. Right now, they are very open and transparent, and on the site it says now that you have to expect more delays. It doesn't mean that you will get delays, but you have to expect more delays with everything that's going on. I've never ever had any problems with them. I have to say, I can only say good about them. The cigars, you just have to see, they're just turning them over. They're turning over probably thousands of boxes. It's really hard to know with online sites, but they've got a huge amount of stock, because you can see what they're showing as available online, and the special offers obviously are ones which they've got a lot of, and ones which they're trying to shift. But you have to expect that you're going to get cigars which are literally brand new, and if you want a box of cigars that you want to be able to smoke straight away, you may not be able to. And they're also doing a good selection of non-Cubans now as well, which they started a few months ago, and they really have some good cigars. Hey Suffolk, hey Daniel, how you doing? Yeah, Shaving Costards is part of Havana House. He said as much in the video. Yeah, Josh, I think you have a good point there, that it does need some colour, and that's why I thought to do this. I think this will work well. This tan kind of colour, I think that will work well. If I go any darker than that, I think I risk the depth of the blast being lost in that colour. I did, Daniel. Everybody has different tastes, but I do have to give it some kind of protection, otherwise it will get dirty, because basically it's quite a rough finish because it's sandblasted, and it will get dirty from being held. So whether I keep it or whether I sell it, I don't want the person who has it to end up with a dirty pipe. So either I'll give it a light stain, or I'll just not stain it and just give it a shellac coating to protect it. "18 working days. How long ago was that, Tam? Was that during the lockdowns? Yes, Daniel, they do. You're absolutely right. They do get a patina. They get a rich golden brown kind of thing. They just get a darker brown. But depending on who ends up smoking it, it could end up getting quite dirty as well. So although the darker it gets, the more it's smoked, that will be absorbed. You know, you won't see it so much because of the darkness of the pipe, I guess. I haven't made up my mind, I must be honest. I mean, look at this pipe. This pipe here has a great ring grain, stunning ring grain, and it's black, and it looks great. But because of the depth of the ring grain, it can carry it. I do find that some stained ring grain pipes, sandblasted pipes, I do find sometimes that it loses the edge. Part of the beauty of the sandblast for me is the sharp edges. You know, the real. If you look at the crevices, the more coatings you put on it, the shallower those crevices become. So whatever I put on here, even if it's shellac, and when I put shellac on a rusticated pipe, I tend to put quite a thick coating of it to give it a good protection and to gain some sheen, because rusticated pipes generally are quite hard to get a shine on, unless you sand it a little bit. No, I agree with you, Josh. I'm really thinking button polish. This is coated in button polish, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be the best way to go. Yeah, Daniel, lots of companies do naked pipes. All the Morgan Bones pipes, which people have, they color up amazingly. They get almost black. I think it's Pipe and Tamper, Mike Murphy. He's been. Oh no, I think he stained that actually. I think he stained that one. He's been showing a panelled one, I think, recently on Instagram, and that looks really dark. But I think he stained that one. But there are some people who have got really dark ones. So at the moment, I'm smoking a mixture of St James Woods from 2013. With some of my own London Fog. It's a very nice, rich mixture. That's very good, Tam. If it's come to you in 15 days during the current situation, that's pretty good. Hey, Paul, how you doing? I wouldn't think that the tobacco stains the pipe. I think it's more about your hands and the oil in your hands. As much as people talk about pipes breathing and things like that, I don't know. Although meerschaum pipes is a different story. Meerschaum pipes, they do. It is the tobacco juices, and a lot of people, they're very careful not to touch the meerschaum themselves, and it's just the tobacco juices that gets drawn into the stone, sort of that soft kind of absorbent material. Oh, thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. I can't claim to be any expert on how these things work with pipes. You know, I'm learning myself all the time. I'll probably have a crack at it tomorrow and hope that I don't wreck it. I just need to decide whether I go tan or whether just shellac as it stands. And I'm thinking that doing just the shellac would probably be fine initially, see how it looks. And if I don't like it, I can always go over it with the tan one. But once I do the tan one, there's no going back unless I get it reblasted, which not much point in doing that. And this here, this smooth rim, I want to try and match it as close as possible to this tortoise shell stem. That's really what my aim is. So to have a lighter color here and a contrasting stem and smooth rim to contrast with that, whatever color the bowl is. I was gonna open up, I've got some vintage McLaren's tobaccos, which I was thinking of opening one up tonight, but this mixture is really good. I'm just not sure that it's necessary for me to go again with something. It's a tobacco which I've not tried before. There's a McLaren's from 2005 Christmas chair. And this one here, Boston 1776. This one is from 2010. And I've never tried this. I think this is a Virginia tobacco. Virginia flake pipe tobacco. So, how is a sandblast effect achieved? Well, essentially by sandblasting. So you have a sandblasting cabinet, you have a sandblasting gun, much like it looks very similar to a spray painting gun, and it blasts media at the pipe. In the industry, it's used normally for blasting away rust from metal, things like that. But briar, for the same reason as you get a contrast stain, is because it has softer and harder parts. So the softer parts absorbs the stain and the harder parts don't absorb it as much. So these darker areas are the areas which have absorbed stain, and the lighter areas are the areas which don't absorb the stain so much. So that's how you get the contrast stain. The same thing applies here. When you blast it with sand, or some people use very small glass beads, which are obviously there's almost the same size as sand granules, so really tiny. There's various different types. Some people use ceramic. And there's different types of media that you can get. But essentially, what it does is it blasts away the softer areas of the briar, leaving behind the hard parts. And you've got two grain structures. You've got the vertical grain, and then you've got the ring grain. And that's what you get left with. I mean, I've not actually ever done it myself, so I can't really tell you about it very much other than that's the result. You probably need to practice it, and to achieve that result, how to use the sandblasting gun and to how long to spend on each spot. I think this one has had 2 passes. So in other words, it's gone over once to give a fine sandblast, so you start to see where the grain is, and then you go over it again to really define the grain. And I think Jim Cook does his 3 or 4 times. That's how he achieves that really deep sandblast. I really do like sandblasted pipes, Daniel. I like the Sea-Rock rustication as well. That's what I use as well when I do rustication myself. So it's the thing is that sandblasting is very time consuming. I hope one day to get a sandblasting set up, and then I'll be able to see myself. The result is beautiful, but it's very time consuming. So it's a matter of weighing up, what you want to achieve, how much you can charge for your pipes. If I spend, say, 4 hours making a pipe, but if I sandblast it, I've got to spend an extra hour or 2 hours on it. I've got to decide if that's a good use of my time or not. and so that will depend on what I can charge for my pipes, I guess. At this stage, as I say, I'm trying to keep my prices down as much as I can, and they're fairly stable at the moment, and it's probably going to stay that way for a while. That's the idea, anyway. Ultimately, it's all about time, because that's really the reason why I only make a few hand-cut stems every so often. It's all about time. This one here I made, when was this? Maybe a week or so ago. Came out really nice. I had that issue with the stem, which if any of you saw it being made live, but the result is really, really good. I'm very happy with it. The stem came out really nice. Very happy with that. Actually, the button worked out really well, and it's a lovely lightweight pipe, beautiful flame grain. That's still available if anybody's interested, and it's got this olive wood accent on the stem rather than the shank, which I think just makes it a little bit more interesting. One, 4, 3. So 1, 4, 3, I think. Was that the is that this one or this one? I don't remember which one it is now. Was it the apple or the egg? Lots of food going around. First one. Actually, this one I do want to tighten up a little bit on the shaping, but you can see the shape overall, a nice egg. But this side here, there was something which bothered my eye. I tend to have a fairly symmetrical eye, and something bothered me about the shape of this pipe. And it took me a bit of time to work it out, but what I realized is that if you look here, that goes down there, but it doesn't come in enough. So that needs a little bit of a slant there, just to match that side. So it's going in there, and then it will be spot on. So what will happen is, as a result, is that will get tightened up over there. So the line will go like that. So I'm going to revisit this one, I think. Sometimes you only see things afterwards, And this was the other one, but this one was a commission, so it's sold. This one was that just worked out beautiful. Absolutely love this pipe. The grain on this, just superlative. The stain worked out really well. The stain on this one is British Tan, it's called. Originally, what was inspired in this pipe was this pipe here, and the customer wanted me to make one like this. But he said, obviously, go with the briar and obviously see what comes out and what makes sense. And when I saw, as I was making this and as I was shaping it, and I saw the grain, I got in touch with him and I said, there's no way that I'm rusticating this. And I told him that the grain here there was some grain, but it was nothing spectacular. So I said I would rusticate the shank, but not the bowl. I said to him, if he wasn't happy with that, I'll wait till the next one, and I'll make him a different one. But there's no way that I was going to rusticate this, and it's just turned out beautiful. I spent a lot of time sanding it, so it's got a really lovely smooth feel. It's big, it's got thick walls, and it's just drilled spot on. This should be an awesome pipe, it really should. It really should be a great smoking pipe. Hey Jordan, thank you. Hey Jeff. So, got some basic pipe socks now. Took delivery of some. I've ordered some more. And what I'm planning to do is, once I've got a design done, which Paul has very kindly offered to send me some ideas. But ultimately, once we settle on an idea, I'm going to get some badges made, some buttons, which I will probably attach to the pipe socks. Yeah, just try to develop some branding, really. Right, this pipe is basically done. So, question is, another pipe or a cigar? Don't smoke that many cigars these days. I know what Brian's answer is going to be. Josh says pap. The Sunbear tobacco, I'm not sure if I actually uploaded the video the other day. I did a chat about it in one of my morning drives. I think I did. Yeah, if you watch my morning drive from a couple of days ago, it's called Morning Sun Trade Offer. I actually asked people if they were interested in, if they had some of this, to trade it with some tobaccos that I can get here for them, which they can't get in the States. Didn't get any offers, but it's a nice tobacco. It's not earth-shattering, but it's nice, especially the first half of the bowl. The first half of the bowl is great. It's actually excellent. It's got a nice sweet honey flavour, bit of a mixture of that Virginia molasses. It's got a bit of depth and it's got a bit of brightness from that honey. But as you get to the second half, for me anyway, it starts to come through with a more of a burley kind of flavour. Even though I don't think there is burley in there, but it's got some exotic orientals in there, which is giving that kind of aroma to it. It's a nice blend, and probably I don't know what it will be like in a few years' time. I don't know what will happen to that topping, whether it will improve it or whether it will dissipate. It's hard to know. But to be honest, with small batch, you've got to be quick off the mark, and you don't know really what it's going to be like. So it's really a bit of pot luck. You see some people, as soon as there's a drop of small batch, some people out there buying 30, 40 tins. But you don't really know. I'm always fortunate and grateful that there's people out there in the States who are prepared to send me a tin or two, which I'm happy, obviously I pay for or trade. I'm not asking any favours. But I feel very fortunate that I'm able to try them when I'm here in the UK. We don't really have small batch that kind of thing here in the UK. Here we've got the staple, we've got the McBarons, but they're not English. But the English ones are essentially J.F. Germain's and Samuel Garth Hogarth. That's about it. So they have every so often they might bring out a new blend, but generally speaking, their blends are really pretty constant and you can rely on them. And if you find something which is local in your country that's good and you enjoy it and it's a standard thing, then that's really always the best thing to rely on. It's nice to try other stuff for sure. But for me, so for instance, Orlik Golden Sliced, although you can't buy it here anymore, you used to be able to buy it here, but at least it's available in Europe and you can buy it and you can top up. the sensible thing with any blend, if you really like it, is to really stock up as you go along. So instead of buying 20 tins in one go, just buy a couple of tins every couple of weeks or every month, whatever your budget allows, and just top up your cellar that way. Because you never know which brand's going to go out of business. You just don't know. Hopefully none, but it happens. Right, let me catch up. What's a good base tobacco for infusing DIY flavors? Well, that's a good question. You really need to try some out because everybody's got a different palate. So you want something which would be a good carrier for your flavorings without, because whenever you mix blends, you don't know how that interaction will work. Sometimes it will be a positive interaction, sometimes one will take away from the other and you'll lose the balance that you had in mind. So it's a matter of trial and error. This London Fog worked for me because it was on the base of All It Golden Sliced, which is a really, really nice, straight down the line Virginia with a very gentle topping on it, or a bit of Perique officially, but I think there is some very, very mild topping on there. So for me, that was a good base. And I added Virginia Woods to it to just give it a little bit of spice, a bit of that McClelland Virginia. And I think there was a bit of flavouring in the Virginia Woods as well. So for me, that worked. But when you dream up mixtures, it's what is working in your imagination. Your imagination thinks about a certain flavour, thinks about another flavour, and think, those might go well together. And I think it's different for everybody. And the reason why we're not blenders and the people out there, the professionals, are blenders, is because they, number one, they've trained their palates and they just know their tobaccos so well, and they understand tobaccos and they understand what goes well with what. But most of the blends, they will also be the result of many, many trial and error versions until they've arrived at the one that they've settled on. Good night, Suffolk. Yeah, Brad, the Sun Bear sold out. I mean, most of these will sell out pretty quickly. As I say, I only got one tin. I can't remember who sent it to me. It might have been Mike Blocker. I don't recall. Somebody said the other day that when you do trades or you get gifts of tobacco, you should write on it who sent it to you so you can shout them out, which, when I remember, I do. Pascal, how you doing? Have I revisited tobacco, Daniel asks, from the past that you didn't like, to see if you like it now? Yeah, I do that all the time. The biggest revelation for me was Latakia in general. When I first tried Latakia, it repulsed me. It really did. I've said this many times on my channel. I bought, I think it was smoking pipes at the time when I first started. I didn't know about getting done by taxes and customs and all of this kind of thing. We're talking about 5 years ago. I made an order with tobaccopipes.com. I ordered some Cult Blood Red Moon, and I ordered a sample pack, which they were offering, of all of the Frogmortons, a 40-gram tin of each. And it was, I don't know, it was something like $35 or $40 for the whole set. So I bought a set of that. I paid more in taxes than the value of the order, but it was really exciting for me at the time. I had just started out and I paid those taxes. I popped the first tin. I don't remember which was the first one. It might have been Bayou. I don't remember. But anyway, that smell of Latakia, I reeled back when I smelled that smoky, acrid, kind of acidic, smoky flavour. And I remember trying to sell those, all of them, or trading them or anything, and nobody was interested. I had just started on Instagram as well. I think it was even my first post on Instagram. Those are no longer there. I had an account previously on Instagram, which I'd built up at the time, something like 1,500 followers, something like that, and I closed that account and I opened a new one later on. So yeah, Latakia was one like that, which I came back to it about 6 or 8 months later, and fell in love with it, and discovered Northwoods and smoked Northwoods, almost every single day for a long time. And Orlik Golden Sliced is another one, because Orlik Golden Sliced, in actual fact, Daniel, I'd have to add into that any Virginia tobacco. It's not because I didn't like it, I just couldn't tolerate it. I got bitten as soon as I tried anything that was Virginia forward until I discovered 9mm pipes. And then once I discovered 9mm, I revisited all of those tobaccos, and I've been able to smoke all of them now. Another one is McClelland's Virginias. McClelland's, the first ever McClelland I had was Christmas Cheer 2014, which was sent to me by Stutter, Cynthia and Susan. And we did a package exchange back in 2015. And they sent me a tin of 2014, and I opened that tin as well. And also, that ketchup-y, vinegary smell to me just was so weird. It was completely out there. It just didn't make any sense. I'm trying to smoke a tobacco here and I'm getting ketchup. I'm not eating French fries now. Why do I need ketchup? And I stuck that in one of my Tupperdoors and I didn't touch it for about a year. And then again, like the Latakia, during that time, your palate is refining constantly. It's discovering new tastes, and it's appreciating more different complexities in different tobaccos. And again, I fell in love with that, and I then ended up buying lots of McClelland tobaccos. Some I liked, some I didn't. For instance, Balkan Blue, which is a Latakia mixture, a Balkan blend. I also fell in love with that. Smoked a lot of that for a long time. Really smooth, cool kind of smoke. And I was lucky enough to pick up a few tins just before or just after they announced. So at the moment, I have one open tin and 2 tins in the cellar. But I'm actually really fortunate. I've got a really good selection of Christmas cheer tobaccos. I've got some tins of the 2017 of the 40th anniversary, various different blends. I've got still some of the Frogmortons, Hey Tree, how you doing? Haven't seen a video from you for a while, Tree. Hope you're all right. Everything going well? Did I get my vintage lighter on eBay? My vintage lighter. Which vintage lighter is that? Are you talking about this one here? This is a Dunhill lighter, which I got at the Moti Ezrati sale. In terms of making London Fog, Daniel, how did I know which percentage? It was just trial and error. The main thing that drove my thought process at the time was not to waste the Virginia Woods, because obviously it's McClelland's. So at the time when I first started it, I did it at around 60-40, and that was pretty much the best mixture. But I now do roughly 50-50. And I've still got a pound bag of the Sutliff match for Virginia Woods, which I haven't opened yet, which was sent to me by Artie's place. And one day I'll have to open it when I run out of Virginia Woods. Cogs and Sprockets, how you doing? No worries, Jeff. Glad to have you on board. Howdy, Flatwater Monty. The Dunhill was the one. Okay, Jack, yeah. It doesn't, it works sometimes, and sometimes, it still sparks. But it doesn't work most of the time. I probably have to do something with this wick. But it's something which I'll probably pass on at some stage. There you can see the Dunhill logo, made in England. Somebody who knows these things will be able to get it working again. It's fully there. There's nothing missing. It's not broken as such. It just needs a service. Dominican Glory Maduro. If I can ask, would smoking a full bent pipe help reduce tongue bite, as the stem is longer, so cooler smoke and wouldn't need filters? I'm not somebody who's been smoking a pipe for decades and decades, so based on my 5 years experience, the answer is no. It may be minutely, but I think there's a few things that contribute to tongue bite, and obviously I'm no expert because I never managed to overcome the problem, hence going over to 9mm filters, so I'm probably not the best authority on this, but there's a few issues. So for instance, this pipe here, which I decided to smoke, this has got a fishtail stem. Now if you take that's also a fishtail, but you get sometimes pipes where this is not so much of a fishtail. So you can see the difference in width on these two pipes. Okay, so when you have the bit fanned out, if you can imagine a triangle, if you can imagine over here that there would be this from around here, if this would be fanned out like that and like that, the smoke coming out of the bit would be spread and it wouldn't be focused in a very small spot on your tongue. This one's got a little bit of fanning done right in the tip on the bit there, but it's not really enough, but it will spread it a little bit. You can see it's there to there, but it's not really enough. It needs to be fanned out to there like that and like that. So that's one thing. The humidity of your tobacco is going to have a big contributory factor. You know, if there's too much moisture in your tobacco, that's going to heat it up and it's going to burn you. The aromatics, the humescence that is in your tobacco is going to have an effect. So the purer the tobacco, the drier, although you don't want it too dry, it's just about getting it just right. If it's too dry, it's going to be like tinder, and it's also going to burn hot. You don't want it to burn too fast, so it's about your cadence. It's about how quickly you smoke. If you're a puffer, if you're a chugger, you're also going to possibly get tongue bite. And I dare say over time your tongue does acclimatise a bit to it. So the P-lip, Daniel, essentially what it does is it basically, instead of having the hole at the end, it has the hole on the top. And what that does is it stops the pipe, the smoke coming out there and onto your tongue, and instead it goes up onto your palate, onto the roof of your mouth. I've tried it once or twice, and if you suffer from tongue bite, you'll instead suffer from palate bite. I can't say it from a huge amount of experience, but that's the theory in my mind. And for me, the way I overcome it, as I said, was moving to 9mm pipes, and that just cured it from 1 second to the next. And it's possible that if I would have persevered and taught myself slower cadence, better humidity, all of those things, and I might have been able to tolerate it. But I actually believe that I've got a particularly sensitive tongue, and therefore for me it's just, if I can enjoy my pipes this way with 9mm, that's what I'm doing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to enjoy what we do. If it becomes a chore, if it becomes every time I smoke I've got to think about every draw that I make, I'm going to lose enjoyment. It's okay sometimes when you're sitting back in an armchair and you're just relaxing, but for me 9mm is a no-brainer. And now there's people, artisan carvers, who make 9mm pipes, don't you know? So you can get pretty pipes as well in 9mm. Jeff, in terms of a Falcon pipe, they're a nice idea because you can change your bowl. They're interchangeable, so you can just have one body, one shank as such, and change your bowls. And you can have, there's huge ranges of bowls out there, and there are some artisan people who make custom-made bowls for the Falcons. So they're a good option if you're on a budget, let's say, because they're not the most expensive pipes in the world. So you can get one or two shanks, you can get bent and you can get straight. I don't find them the most aesthetically pleasing, but they're a concept, and they're certainly got a certain romanticism about them because of the name, the Falcon. You know, it's had a long staying power, and a lot of people will think that they should at least have one. And I did the same. I've got a shank somewhere, but I just didn't get on with them because for the same reason. They're not 9mm, and I get tongue bite. In terms of the meerschaum lined briar bowls, I've tried them a couple of times, and I personally didn't see the benefit. The idea of meerschaum is that it absorbs. If it then absorbs only to be hit by a briar wall around it, I'm not sure that you're actually getting that benefit. But it obviously works for some people, otherwise they wouldn't make them. So there is that concept there, and for people who like meerschaum but are worried when they go out and about that they're going to drop them and smash them, that's the answer. That would be a good compromise. And when you're back home, smoke a full meerschaum pipe. For me, everybody has their own personal taste. You just got to try and work out what's your best experience in smoking. For me, briar is king, without a doubt. I've tried meerschaum, and I have still one meerschaum pipe, which I smoke every so often. But for me, it's briar all the way. I've tried mortar as well, which I didn't like. In terms of system pipes, Daniel, it's one item in the equation. It's not just the moisture which is going to give you tongue bite. So if you're a wet smoker, then yes, a system pipe might be an answer for you. Mr. Eximba, how are you doing? Yeah, flat water, absolutely. I mean, that's the idea of the concept. You can take one shank with you and take as many bowls as you want. And it's really cool because you can go from Latakia to aromatic to Virginia to every single genre of pipe tobacco, and you're not worrying about flavors in the bowl affecting your next smoke. Granddad on the bowling green. How old are you, Jeff, if I may ask? This used to be my, I wouldn't say go-to, but almost go-to cigar smoke. Very early on, in the early days. This is October 2012. I even got the receipt in here. Bought this at Dunhill, and I paid, what did I pay? I got a 10% discount. It was 190, and I got a 10% discount. I also bought my Calibri V cutter then as well, so I paid £171, I think it is, for these, which for retail is actually very good. This is the Petit Bellicoso Gran Brutana Ramon Ayones from 2012, and I think this is the only one I've got left because it was quite a bright coloured wrapper, and I thought they were perhaps a little bit greener than the others. They have darkened a bit, but hey Jeff, how you doing? I keep sort of looking at them and thinking, all right, I'm going to have one. The thing is, with any box, once you start it, it finishes very, very quickly. So far I've resisted. I know I should, Daniel, but I think I will smoke. Oh, actually, let me see if I've got an open box of this. 1 second. No, I haven't started this box either. This is a lovely smoke. This is a French. Look at the picture; it's disgusting. A French regional, the Hexagon. Also boxes of 10. This is a nice size cigar. This is a 50. This is a 54 ring gauge. And these, I smoked I think 2 boxes of these already, and they were excellent. They were excellent from day one. Yeah, I only ever had 1 tin of that Sunbear Voodoo. Got some Romeo and Juliet White Churchills, but these are still quite fresh. This is May 19, so I'm not smoking these yet. I have smoked AJ Fernandez cigars, but really quite some time ago. Hey, Chad. All right, enough of a humidor tour. I suppose I should do another one of those at some point in time. So this is the specially selected Ramon Allones. It's basically a classic Robusta size. Why don't they have those warning pics on fast food wrappers? Yeah, it's a good question, Cogs and Sprockets. Very good question. Can you taste the difference from Cuban to non-Cuban, and what smoking experience have you had with non-Cubans? If maybe initially when you first start smoking a cigar, you may not appreciate the difference, but once you got some experience smoking a cigar, you will get the difference without a doubt. I think that somebody who's been smoking non-Cuban cigars and tries a Cuban might think they're actually really quite bland and mild and not much going on. This is a paleo cutter I bought a couple of months ago, and I use it quite often. It's unbelievably sharp. Beautiful cut. Perfect. Please do, Jeff. So the difference between a Cuban and non-Cuban, Daniel, is almost chalk and cheese. Cuban cigars are a very refined taste, and once they've got a bit of age on them, they get this tangy richness to them, a little bit of a sweet sourness, not your sort of Latakia type sweet sourness, but just a tangy. It's hard to describe the flavor, but it's a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of burnt sugar. Sometimes you get some coffee, but you get a lot of creamy, buttery flavor, especially at the beginning of the cigar, and you get a lot of cedar sometimes. Each brand has slight differences. There is a certain sort of common DNA with most Cuban cigars, and they're all most of them are grown in the Vuelta a Bayo, which is I mean, they're all, or Pina del Rio. And it's really about the blending. So they're all slightly different, but they're all quite similar as well. Yeah, that's right, Daniel. They do have construction issues. It's true. I still find that to this day. You buy a box of 25 Cubans, I would say at least half a dozen will be really tight, and some of them even unsmokable. Ooh, Chad is smoking some Rabbit Hutch. Which one tonight, Chad? Yeah, they do have construction issues, and I don't know why they still have them. But they're better than they used to be, but they still do have a percentage of your cigars will have construction issues. Old Joe Krantz. I watched your interview the other day, Chad, with Mike. You quit smoking and you're a pipe man. Thanagon. Well done. That's a good move. Rocky Patels. Rocky Patels are not for me. I find them too peppery. Too much chili heat in a lot of them that I've tried. I can't say that they're all like that, but the ones that I've tried I've generally found to be a little bit too hot for me. I had, I think it was the silver one a while back, which was I think the 20th anniversary or 15th anniversary, and I just found them too much too peppery. A lot of your music stuff, Chad, is over my head because I had a good Jewish upbringing, so I missed out on a lot of that. Well, missed out is a subjective consideration. So a lot of it I couldn't appreciate what you were talking about. I find that a lot of those interviews they end up not being so much about pipe smoking, which is a good thing. It's nice to have a diverse chat. A Romeo number 1. And how is it, Jeff? Have you tried the La Perla Habana 500 Anos? I have not, no. Chad. Humble. As humble as Moses you are. You're fighting a plug. Have you got one of those tools? I'm not a big fan of those tools, but I suppose it's better than nothing. I'm trying to find mine. It's in my drawer somewhere. My drawer has been overcome with so much tat. So I got one of these perfect drawer tools. What this is a little spike with very sharp edges. They're really very sharp. You catch them on your finger, you're drawing blood. But it does do what it's supposed to do, but I find that it doesn't usually save the cigar. What it does is, because of those serrated edges, you, you you put it into the cigar. Obviously, you put it in bit by bit because the blockage very often is around this area here. When you get around the head. So you put the thing in, and as you draw it out slowly, it pulls out chunks of leaf. It can make a cigar smokable. I don't find that it will ever make it a normal, good quality smoke. It can make it smokable, but that's about it. It can save it from you having to chuck it. But I've never, ever, I don't think, ever succeeded in turning a blocked or tight cigar into a successful, perfect smoke. Even not perfect, even 80%. In terms of, Daniel, your question about cigars and pipes, I've gone through various different phases. When I was struggling with tongue bite before I discovered 9mm pipes, I was smoking 2 to 3 cigars a day, and I was enjoying it. And there were some months where I literally didn't have a single pipe. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, cigars don't give me tongue bite. Maybe because the smoke output is spread in your mouth much more, and it's not sort of focused on a point. I actually find that smoking a cigar slows me down as well. A lot of people talk about that being the main difference, that the ritual of pipe smoking slows you down more than a cigar. I don't find that. I enjoy the ritual of cutting and lighting a cigar, selecting a cigar, rolling it between my hands to feel if it's going to have a good draw, smelling it beforehand to see if it's ready, that kind of thing. I enjoy all of that. It's just a different ritual, but it's a matter of how you approach it. If you approach it in a rushed way, if you're busy, then I think that's how you'll enjoy that smoke. You'll enjoy it as a rushed, non-relaxing experience. If you sit down, like now, when you're having a chat, a virtual meetup, that kind of thing, it's really enjoyable. And after a long day's work, a hard day's work, perhaps a wedding that I've done in the past, and I'm really sort of need to wind down. Oftentimes I would turn to a cigar. I haven't done that recently, but when I was really smoking cigars really hit the spot more than pipes for me. But I have discovered much richer blends of pipe tobacco as well, and sometimes I'll turn to a pipe now as well, rather than a cigar. Cheers, Jordan. You tossed it. Well, Jeff, if you get to that point where you're going to toss a cigar, then what I would advise you to do is just take your cigar cutter and just cut it half inch by half inch, and see if, obviously up to a point, because you get to a point where it's too short. Take the band off and just cut it, and you can, if you feel that the blockage is at the top, start that way down. You run the risk of it unwrapping a little bit. If you feel the blockage is on the bottom half, just snip it little bit by little bit, and you might just pass it and save half a cigar. You could do that. I've done that before. If you put the nub in a pipe, then that's okay. If you smoke it right down to the nub normally without a pipe, then I can get some tongue bite. Not so much tongue bite necessarily, but just my whole mouth starts to tingle. Oh no, Paul. I think we've all done that once. No, you don't want to cut a thing with a regular knife, that's for sure. If you don't have a cutter, you're far better off taking a match and just piercing the end. So it's like a hole punch, but a very small one. If the cigar is well rolled and it's not tight, then that will be fine. You'll smoke okay. If it's a tight cigar, then having a tiny hole won't help you at all. But Half Corona is a great. The H. Hartman Half Corona, I assume you're talking about. That's a great cigar. I almost pulled the trigger recently on getting a couple of boxes of those, but I haven't. I just it just didn't seem like the right time with the way financial situation is at the moment. Everything that's going on in the world. Ocean waves, do not do that. My strongest advice would be for you not to do that. Um, if you take the end of somebody else's cigar, all you're getting is their gunk that they've smoked through the cigar. You're going to get all the spent carbon that they've been putting through the cigar for an hour. Definitely do not do that. Um, because that will, if you want to be put off cigar smoking, then yeah, go ahead. But if you want to enjoy a cigar, just buy yourself a cigar and buy a fairly decent one. Where are you based, Ocean Waves? Which part of the world? I think that H. Hartman is really, out of the Cuban brands, for me, it's California. Yeah, just pick up a, if you're starting off, I'll suggest. I mean, people will be able to suggest far more than I will in terms of non-Cubans, but the ones that I've tried, which I've enjoyed, and I would recommend as starting off cigars, is an Undercrown, a Drew Estates Undercrown Shade to start with, and you can move over to the other ones after that. But the Shade to start with, or I would recommend the Leaf. I can't remember the make, but it's called the Leaf cigar. I'm sure somebody here will know the make. I found that to be also a very good starting point for cigars. Another thing I would suggest, I wouldn't start with an Oliva Serie V. I would not start on that. I would move on to that when you can, for sure. It's a fantastic cigar, but I wouldn't start with that. I would start with something lighter. That's just my personal opinion. You know, Jeff gives a good call, but he's an experienced cigar smoker. Leaf by Oscar, thank you, Brian. So the Leaf cigar is a good cigar to start with. It's not too heavy. And I would also suggest, what's that? I haven't smoked them for a while, so I forget the mix. Not Padron. One of the main companies out there. I think they do a line called 8x8 or 898. Somebody, Brian. A tree. Thank you, Arturo Fuente. Yeah, so Arturo Fuente's the regular lines, not the X ones or anything like that. Just the regular lines. The 898 is a good way to go. They've got a really nice 858. Thank you. A very nice, nutty, middle of the road kind of smoke. The Hemingways are nice. They can get a little bit richer because they're shorter. But I would say that the 858, that kind of size, that kind of vitola is a great way to start. But I think that if I was to choose any of them, I would say go with the Undercrown Shade, and go with the Robusta size. The half Coronas and the Coronas, because they're narrower, they can be a bit stronger. I would go for the Robusto. The Robustos in the American cigars, or let's say the non-Cuban cigars, they are bigger than the English Robusta size. So don't expect to smoke the whole thing. And when you smoke that cigar, every 3 or 4 draws that you do, blow through the cigar as well, and that will help to keep the cigar fresh. Because when you're drawing through the cigar, that tar is coming through and leaving deposits throughout the cigar. And as you get towards the end of the cigar will get bitter. If you blow through the cigar every so often, you blow some of that out and it gets burnt at the ember. And that just helps to refresh the flavors. You can do that with a pipe as well. If you find your pipe is getting a little bit ashy, you can tip the ash, the spent ash, and then gently blow through the pipe, and that will also refresh the flavors a bit. Let the pipe go out and relight, and you should get a refreshed taste. A purge, yes. I was trying to be non-technical. I wouldn't go with a sun-grown. I would. I wouldn't go with a sun-grown. No, you don't want to puke the first time round, but you need to be prepared. So make sure you have a good heavy meal beforehand, and have something sweet on hand, maybe a chocolate bar or something like that, and maybe have that every so often as you're smoking your first one. That will help to keep your equilibrium. Cheers, Flatwater. Yeah, it's a shame he doesn't make them anymore. Jason, I forget the name of his channel, but he made made some fantastic ones. I ordered some more basic ones, which I gifted to a couple of people. They're really good. I might actually try and do something like this myself at some point. I even ordered these copper shavings. I've got a whole bag of them in the garage. I wanted to try and incorporate it in my pipes, but I never actually did it. Pipe racks, yeah, that is something. But I just at the moment my philosophy is just stick to pipes. I'm still in my evolutionary stage of learning to make pipes, and I don't want to confuse myself, and I don't want to deflect my focus. So at the moment I'm sticking to pipes. I've had various suggestions from people to do things like campers and racks and ashtrays, all that kind of thing, which is all some stuff which I would like to do, possibly if and when I go into it more full-timey kind of thing. But at the moment that's not a consideration. So at the moment I'm just sticking with pipes at the moment. The copper shavings, how did they get applied? Well, what he's done here is he's obviously carved a ring, a deep ring, and he's set it in some kind of solution, a glue solution of some kind, or acrylic, and then turned it so that it's smooth and no sharp edges. So it's obviously sanded, so it's nice and smooth. I did buy the acrylic solution, but I haven't used it yet. But it's something for the future. Epoxy, that kind of. I don't think it's epoxy. I think it's an acrylic solution. It may well be epoxy. I don't know. If I'm honest with you, I do not know. Thank you, Mr. Ximba. Jason McNary. No, not Jason McNary. I can't remember his name. A rusticated pipe rack. That's a clever idea. A lot of rusticating, though. A lot of rusticating. What's my experience with Maduro cigars? I personally am not a fan, but I do enjoy them sometimes. I enjoy them more with non-Cubans than Cubans. For me, it just is it's a confusion with Cuban cigars. The whole point of a Cuban cigar for me is that rich sweetness, the tang of the Cuban tang. You add in Maduro to it, for me, to my palate, it's just completely confusing. But it does work much better for me with non-Cubans. So the Undercrown Maduro, I actually started on the Maduro before the Shade, and I really enjoyed the Maduro. I think my favourite is the Sun-Grown. It's got a really nice richness to it. How to avoid fake cigars in Spain is you've got to buy them from a retailer. It's still considerably cheaper than here, so there's plenty of legitimate places that you can buy them in Spain. Yeah, I've actually, in terms of a 200th pipe, I've actually been talking to I've been talking to the Pipe Club of London about possibly in the future doing a club a pipe of the year for them, and the shape which I showed before, the chubby, these things, is something which I might consider doing, and they've got one already booked for next year, for 2021, but we'll see. Jeff, are you based here in England? Are you a Brit? Have we interacted before? These specially selected are really coming into their own. See what year they are. This is October 2018. It's just over a year and a half. That's pretty good for a year and a half. They're not really quite there yet, but they're pretty good. I was actually reading a book which Mike sent me, and something fascinating happened, which I actually need to ask Mike about it. While I was convalescing with the COVID-19, he sent me a couple of books, and one of them was this book here. This is Leaves from a Tobacco Man's Log by Raymond Schnitzer, and it's all about Herman Lane, about Lane Tobacco, but it's about him as a person. And I've read this now 2 or 3 times. It's a really good read. But I realised afterwards, I never noticed this initially, but it's signed, and it says, "To Arthur, with my best wishes," and that to me looks like Herman. It really does. I wonder if it's from Herman Lane himself, from 1970, November 1970, and it's a first edition, copyright 1970 by Herman G. Lane. And I'm wondering whether this is an original signature from Herman Lane. I thought it was really cool. Well, it's very possible that there are some shops in the States. I know that throughout the prohibition, if you like, they've always been available, but you have to really know where you're getting them from. All the famous stars, Arnie, Danny DeVito, all these kind of guys who are famous for smoking cigars, smoke Cuban cigars, so they're obviously getting them from somewhere. Sylvester Stallone, these kind of guys. I haven't asked Mike yet about. I think he said he would. But at the moment, I'm gonna. My first batch that I'm gonna send to a website will be to GQ Tobaccos, I think. At the moment, I've got quite a number of pipes which are available, so I've probably got about 10 pipes that I could send him, which I'm probably going to do. I actually got in touch with him on Thursday or Friday, so that's going to move on, I think, and hopefully during the next week or 2 they should be up on his site, hopefully. These specially selected, commonly known as RAS, as in Ramon Ayones Specially Selected, as Brian has put out there. They have got a typical Cuban twang on the Retrohale. The Retrohale gives you that beautiful, tangy, sort of burnt sugar sweetness, and it's just great. Yeah, there is a website being made at the moment, Paul, and it actually looks pretty good, but I just haven't had the time to start to send them pictures. Hey Eric, thank you for joining. I have tried the Moon Trance, in actual fact. I think I did a first impressions not long ago. I don't think I enjoyed it, if I'm honest. Trying to see if the tin is still here somewhere. I might have put it in one of my Tupperdoors. I did try the Moon Trance. It's supposed to be a tropical, fruity kind of flavour, and it was extremely muddled. It just didn't work for me. It may have been... I saw his title, Chad, but I haven't watched the video yet. I mean, which pipes is he talking about? Is he making them or what? Or is he starting to become a dealer? Good way to describe them. Bona, sorry, what were you referring to? You talking about Cuban cigars or on my description of Cuban cigars? Yeah, Chad. Everybody else seems to be making pipes. Hey, Jimmy. Are you serious? Pipes that he's yet to make. I think he's being facetious. I haven't watched the video yet, but with Professor Walker, anything is possible right now. $20.53. I think that's a bit of a pipe dream, Daniel. Or pipe mare. He's serious, really. Has he made a single pipe yet? Does he know what he's doing? Actually, that's not pipe 20. That's pipe which is made in the year 2020. That pipe is probably around 50 or 60, that kind of thing. But it's not pipe 20. I stopped numbering pipes a long time ago. At the moment, the nomenclature on my pipes is now I use a star system, a rating. The words LCS, letters LCS, and the year 20. So there's one or two with 19 on them, and then the rest are all 20. One hobby block. Okay. What's his price? If he's taking pre-orders. Excuse me. What's the most important thing you learned since making pipes that helps things come together smoothly? Hmm. Well, probably one of the first things I would say is not to do them live because it's a distraction, and I find that when I'm doing stuff live, oftentimes I'll make mistakes. $100, wow, okay. Um, but sanding, really, one thing what I've discovered recently is hand sanding. I used to try and do as much as possible on the sanding wheel, and now I do less on the sanding wheel, and I spend much more time hand sanding. And although it takes longer, you get a much better result. You got more control over the shape, and you got more control over, well, the shaping is done, but in terms of the smooth finish, you know, avoiding ridges in the finish. Have the pipe nook, have the Matches 860 pipes gone out yet? No sweat, Eric. Thank you. The Professor's channel has always been interesting, that's for sure. One way or another. Moontrance, right, Eric? I think we worked that out. Yeah, Eric, I think I would agree with you. But even the flavour that I got, it could be that mine was not as good as it should be because it is an old tin. I got that from the late um, Danny Shaw. So he sent me that. He sent me a bunch of tobaccos, and that was one of them. And it could be that because it's aromatic, that the flavors have broken down over time. So I probably didn't have the best sort of crack at it, but I didn't like it. Oh, he hasn't taken delivery of them yet. Oh wow, he must be pulling his hair out. You can't use a hand sander. It has to be on a wheel, Daniel. A hand sander just wouldn't work. But I mean, if you imagine if you've got the surface of a sanding wheel, imagine that's your sanding wheel spinning round. When you touch it, it sands. So every time you sand, it sands that spot. Although the wheel is that big, but when you're putting a pipe on it, how much of it is actually touching the wheel? A very small section. It's literally a dot. So when you do that, it flattens that dot. Obviously in micro amounts, but it flattens that dot and then that dot. So obviously you spin as you're doing it to reduce that sort of spotting, but you do get, although you have the overall shape, but it's full of these little minor sort of undulations, little nooks and crannies, and that you have to get rid of by hand because your hand is, you can shape your hand any way you want with a paper or a sanding block, which I use a lot, and the sanding block has a sponge on the bottom of it, so it's soft and supple, and it just gives you the ability to really get that shape as you want it. And if that's an area, if there's an area which I've improved on recently, it's that, it's the finish of the bowl. Yeah, absolutely, Bona. What do I recommend for an aromatic? Well, I've recently been enjoying Solani's Blend 131. It's quite a rich blend. It's got a topping of a single malt whiskey, and it's very very good. I've enjoyed that a lot. It's quite rich though. No, you wouldn't want to use a power sander. It would be it's that it would defeat the purpose because you're just replicating the same problem where you're sanding too fast, essentially, and so you're getting these little flat spots. You may not see them; they're tiny, but you need to finish by hand. I've actually been meaning to try the Seven Seas. I read an article on those from McBaron, and it really intrigued me to try those. I haven't tried them yet. Erin Moore's another good one. Erin Moore Flake is fantastic, really nice. I would highly recommend Erin Moore Flake. And Orlick Golden Sliced as well, technically is aromatic. That's a good try as well. I feel bad for Eddie because people have paid him a lot of money. I haven't tried the Racing Green. I think I might even have a tin of it somewhere. I'm not sure. I've got an old Orlick pouch somewhere of an aromatic. I think it's called Ready Rubbed, um, but I haven't tried that. It just didn't seem like it would be something I would go for. Would you guys excuse me for just a minute? Thank you. And we're back. I love coming back into a room after smoking or during smoking a cigar. It just reminds me of JJ Fox's. Yeah, a lot of people have said vanilla cream. I really should try that as well. I've been trying to get a good vanilla flavored tobacco. I've heard good things about vanilla custard as well, the Sutliff one. Luxury Twist. Then I never really got much out of that one, Chad. I have smoked it in fresh and old. Sutliff have a huge amount of match blends. Definitely worth trying. SVH from Dan Tobacco. Okay, let me write that down. Does SVH stand for something, or is that the name of the tobacco? I've got a tin of, I think it's Cornell and Deal vanilla cream, possibly. Oh, I see. Right, okay, SVH. Sweet vanilla honeydew. Okay. Absolutely, 73. It's like that with everything. Same with cigars. Everything is subjective. I mean, there must be some kind of common ground, otherwise nothing would make any sense. You know, any reviews you watched and then you tried that particular cigar or tobacco, nothing would make any sense. So there obviously is some common ground, but still, it is, everybody has their preferences. Daniel, I've tried one once and that was it. It was actually a Drew Estate cigar, and it had a very rich, I think it was a cherry flavour possibly. In actual fact, I think Art sent me a few by a local company that he's at, and I think I've still got them somewhere in a bag. I wonder if I still have them here. I had a bag which sat on my shelf here for yonks. I can't see it now, but he sent me about 5 cigars. I smoked one. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't like the Drew Estate. The Drew Estate one was terrible. It tasted like they dipped it in saccharine. I didn't smoke it. I smoked it a little bit and then dumped it. There's some Trout Stream. Limited edition 12-ounce tin. Never opened. But check this out. I actually never noticed this. It's the first time I'm noticing this. 0001. Interesting. Seal tin. This came from Danny Shore as well, I think. Yeah, that's what happened to me, 73, when I went over to 9mm pipes. It was a lightning moment for me as well. No tongue bite at all. Coconut charcoal. Coconut charcoal? What's that? Danny certainly was a treasure. Have we come up? We must be coming up to a year now, or just past the year. Uh, when did he pass? Must have been about February, March time last year, no? Yeah, that half and half barrel, still got some in there. I picked that up at the Esurati sale a couple of years back. It's very possible 73. I had the same problem. Whatever I tried, I couldn't get rid of the tongue bite. I don't know. I don't remember why I tried 9mm, but once I did, that was it. Yeah, 73. Same here. We must have quite similar pH levels. Balsas didn't work for me either. Is it for sale, tree? Not really selling anything at the moment besides for pipes, really. Trade. What's the? Is that something you collect, tree? Hey Ken, how you doing? Hey Baba Amy 69. I think you're a troll, aren't you? You'd better hop along if you are. 7 Eddie Mike, how you doing? $11 months ago, right? Yeah, so we're coming up to a year. Oh, the trout stream. You like the trout stream tree? Is that your a tobacco you've had before? Oh, trout stream, right? Okay. Jimmy, basically, if somebody doesn't want 9mm, one of my pipes, then I put the adapter in and I glue it in, so it's there permanently. So it'll just come out with a stem like normal. And the adapters that I use are very, very good fit, so it's essentially becomes part of the stem. Well, it definitely is picking up the 9mm. There's no question about that. I'm selling a lot to the States of the 9mm pipes, so it's definitely a call for it there. And yes, a lot of people would say that if you smoke 9mm, you're not really a pipe smoker, but that's all baloney. People say that about anything that people who say that you need to smoke something this way or that way or the other way are the type of people who will judge you about anything in your life, and you just ignore that. Just do smoke a pipe however you enjoy it. Daniel, I don't think it necessarily mellows out when you drink a coffee with a pipe, that it necessarily mellows it. But if you have got a burnt mouth, or if you have got a tingle in your mouth, it'll sort of cool your mouth. It'll lubricate your mouth for sure. And it's always advisable to have a drink when you're smoking, whether it's a cigar or a pipe. No, don't light your pipe with a torchlighter. I agree. balsa wood works for you. Very good, Thanagon. I say everybody has their sort of threshold which works for them, and somebody who finds that 9mm balsa works for them may find that a 9mm charcoal is too much and takes away too much of the flavor profile, thins it out too much, or maybe the draw is too restricted for them. Everybody has a slightly different experience, and with a bit of experimentation you'll find your sweet spot and then stick with it. Absolutely, Josh. I'm a big hypocrite. Thanks for telling me, Josh. You can get 6mm. They're harder to get, but you can get them. So if you've got a Savinelli collection, then you can use 6mm in those. You have to trim them in their diameter or the length? 73. That's interesting. That surprises me because I find that the reason why the balsas don't work for me is because there's so much air around them, because they're a triangle shape, so they're allowing a lot of smoke through. I mean, cutting them in half will certainly make them go longer, so you can get 2 out of each one. I suppose they're quite expensive, I find. Do you find that it's only with a certain pipe, or with any of your pipes, that you find them, that they restrict the draw? 73. Stumpy tree. Absolutely, Bona. Spot on. Absolutely spot on. That's exactly it. I've started to like big pipes, Daniel. Certain big pipes. The 320 didn't work for me, but maybe it would now. But it certainly didn't work for me because the main reason it didn't work for me was I found that the stem was a little bit too fat, a little bit too wide. And I've got wide stemmed pipes, but I found that it became wide really quite quickly. So what I found was that here, if you look here, there's quite a long area where it's quite thin. I found on the 320, at least the one that I had, I found that it sort of got fat very quickly and it was uncomfortable in my mouth. And it is a heavy pipe as well. I have considered getting a 321, which is a smaller version, but I never did in the end. And now, if I buy a pipe, I have to be really wanting to get that pipe. Obviously making my own pipes, although I end up selling them. Only occasionally I smoke. I take one of them for myself, like I did with this one. But I do want to get myself a couple of high-end pipes to see the difference, if only to be able to look at the inner workings and see what I can improve on my pipes. I've actually got a German artisan pipe maker making me a pipe. I forget his name, but we'll see what happens with that. And he's also relatively new into pipe making, but he's got some really nice shaped pipes, and his pricing is still affordable. Well, It's still, what is it? I think it's still about $250 or something like that. I've got a 606. I think that was the second pipe I ever bought. Good pipe, big bowl. Is my 606 St. Nicholas pipe from 2015 maybe. I smoke Blood Red Moon in this pretty much all the time. Very, very nice pipe. Again, Thanagon, in terms of filters, try them and see. Everybody has different experiences. I smoke the Vaughan ones, the Dr. Pearl Vaughan ones, and they've always worked for me, so I stuck with them. But I've had the Peterson ones, and I'm sure a lot of them are made by the same factory as well. And you can get some which have got ceramic on both ends, some have got plastic on one end and ceramic on the other end. You see what works for you. Two Barling pipe bowls. All right, maybe we can work something out. I don't know. I've never had a Barling pipe. I don't know what. Is it an original Barling or a recent one? I don't think I've ever had Carter Hall. Cane Rod smokes that a lot. Cane Rod Piper. Jimmy, it's lined up on the lathe, so you do have to sort of be careful with your lining up. But if you've marked your pipe out accurately before you start carving, when you've got the block and you mark the lines, and then you line those lines up on the lathe, you should be okay. When you're doing a bent pipe, it's harder, and I try very hard to get it central, but with bent pipes you can't always get it spot center, literally dead on. But as long as you've got it in the regions of center, and not above the bottom of the mortise, because sometimes you can have, if you imagine this is the mortise, so the tenon's going in here like this, okay? So all right, so here, if you imagine that is your tenon going in, and that's the end of the mortise. So when you drill, actually the finger was a better example. So that you want it to be fairly snug. You leave a little bit of a gap at the end for expansion, but essentially it's going to be very snug like that. When you drill it, the drill is going to be that's like that. So you're going to drill into the draft hole goes towards the bowl over there. So you want that to be dead center over there. If it's over there, as long as it's not up here, in other words short of the end, if it's up there it's a problem. If it's a little bit, as long as it's in that end section there, I don't think it's a major issue. But if it's non-9mm, then it is more of an issue, because you want a straight path going from the end of your tenon into the draft. That's got to really match it up quite accurately. But with 9mm, because it's such a big mortise, it's not such a problem, in my experience. Yeah, a drill bit. Just go easy with it. Just hold it with a pair of pliers, and just twist it through the draft hole. Start with very small and just slowly go up in increments until you hit the width of the draft hole. When you say it's plugged, is it plugged with gook, or has it never been drilled properly? Has it ever smoked okay? Is it just junk in there, or what's actually blocking it? Hey Kev, didn't see you there. That's getting a bit lost in translation there, Thanagon. Not sure what you're asking. You don't think it's drilled properly? Well, you could very carefully take a cordless drill and start with a small drill bit and just slowly drill through that. You just have to be careful. If you're handy with a drill and you've got a steady hand, that should be okay. You just got to make sure that you keep the drill bit on exactly the same line as the draft hole, so you don't go into the side of the shank. But I would say it's probably best to do it by hand and let the drill bit follow itself the line of the draft hole. If you can do it that way, hold the drill bit with a pair of pliers or something like that, you're probably better off. And you can get these tools which you can hold drill bits, or you get one of these screwdrivers which have the hexagon shape, and you can get drill bits with a hexagon thing on the end of it, and you can just do it that way. Hey pipes, etc. If you got it as an estate, chances are it's just full of rubbish. I mean, it's possible that whoever got it sold it because it was badly drilled as well. And what it could also be, if you've never smoked it, is the bowl, has it got a bowl coating or is it a naked bowl? If it's got a coating, it could just be that the coating is covering the hole as it comes into the bowl, and it just needs a little push. So what you might want to do is just get something like this, and just gently push, and you should get through. Anything like this would at least get a hole through, and then you can see what the issue is. If it's just rubbish, once you've got the hole through, you can then put a pipe cleaner through it with a bit of alcohol, and eventually it'll just get rid of it. Or you get a pipe brush which is a little bit more brittle, like a bristle, and that will sort you out. Right, can you see the hole properly on the bottom of the bowl? I do have a reaming tool, yeah. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to have a look. Looks like it. There you go. These are not very expensive, but this is the perfect thing. All the best, Chad. Thanks very much for joining. Although I've got the reaming tool, I've only ever used it on estate pipes. I've never had to use it on any of mine. All right, people. I think that's enough for tonight. Thank you very much for joining. It's been a very enjoyable chat, as always. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, 780 Mike. Do I have any lifespan on corn cobs? No. I very, very rarely smoke corn cobs. Somebody to ask would be Chad, and he was talking about it the other day. They've got corn cobs which have lasted them a few years, and some. It depends on how you smoke. If you smoke really fast, then you could burn through them quite quick. Thanks very much, Thanagon. I'm grateful that you joined, and I enjoyed chatting with you. Please join again. I'm on usually every Saturday night around midnight UK time. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Pipes, etc. Thanks, John Murray. Thanks, Jeff, Crosby Corner, Cogs and Sprockets, Thanagon, Pascal Heap, Bona Piper, 780 Mike, Daniel, Leslie. Thank you for your questions, Daniel. As always, really helpful. Keep things moving. 73 Maple Piper, and Josh, and Pipe Tree. Tree, get in touch. We'll work something out. Boris the Piper. Voodoo. And everybody else. If I haven't mentioned you, thank you very much for joining. Wildcat Sam, right in at the last. Jeff, thanks. Oh, 9 mil. What did you want to know, Jeff? What's the difference between them? Or why get a 9 mil? For me, it was about tongue bite. It just reduces the moisture, and it just takes the heat off it, basically. Tree, drop me an email if you want to do something with those pipes and the tobacco. Maybe we could do a trade, if that's what you were offering. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and I will catch you. Hey, Phil, right at the last. How are you doing, Phil? We were just about to say goodbye. How are you keeping, Phil? Crazy times indeed. I forgot to ask, how are things going in the States? Has the rioting stopped? Or is it still going on? Still protesting. Well, protesting is fair enough. Hi, Mike. Oh, people joining right at the last. Well, we'll carry on for a little bit. World lost their senses. I'm on curfew 8 p.m. Really? That's bad. Oh, nice, Kev. I'm glad to hear that. It's really, really pleasing when people give me feedback when they smoke pipes. I often get emails from people. They maybe don't have channels or they don't do videos, but it's really nice to get feedback, even if it's not good always. If people have got comments and observations about my pipes, things that I can improve, always welcome any comments. I thought the National Guard was coming in. Hell's Angels. Well, that would be some kind of Armageddon Antifa with Hell's Angels, or at least, well, probably wouldn't be Armageddon. Hell's Angels would probably pound them into the ground. I think when I was younger, growing up, Hell's Angels had quite a bad rep. I think nowadays they're seen more as just a group of people who are fanatical about their bikes. I mean, I'm sure there are some who are a little bit less salubrious, let's put it that way. But overall, I think they've got a better rep nowadays than they used to have. Or am I wrong? I mean, I'm no expert. Yoga martial arts. People talking about Trump calling them a terrorist organization, and people criticizing him because you can't call them an organization because they actually are not an official organization. But I can fully understand why he has called them that. There's no problem with people protesting, but once it gets into the kind of violence that we've seen. You had a massacre involving Hell's Angels. About 5 years ago. I thought you were saying boat 5 years ago. I thought you're Canadian. I thought that was a bit weird. You don't spell accents, do you? Domestic terrorism is actually a good way to describe it. Sorry. I nearly just spewed my coffee all over the place. I like that. Leeds Blue Angels still active. I'm not making fun. I just thought that was funny. I don't know. It's just, as you say, Phil, the world is going mad. And like I said in one of my morning drive videos, I don't know why, but it's always the mum and pup stores that suffer. I don't know why the average storekeeper has to suffer. If you want to demonstrate, and even if you're calling it a war, and you want to, and you feel that peaceful demonstration doesn't help, peaceful protest doesn't help, then go and march on the White House or Capitol Hill or a courthouse or a police station, and then see how you do. But that I could understand. I wouldn't condone it, but I could understand it at least, that you're fighting against the system. But why do the average person on the street, why do they have to suffer? That is what I don't understand. Boker Tov and Shavua Tov to you, Guy. How are you? Thanks, Cogs and Sprockets. No worries, Tanagon. Your English was absolutely fine. WV, how you doing? Yeah, absolutely, Phil. It's just gone crazy. And there's been quite a lot of demonstrations here in London as well, but I don't think it spilled over into any anarchy. Not that I've heard, anyway. 9/11 is when the world changed. Yeah, it was certainly a huge, momentous event, but I'm not sure that that's when the world changed. There's been demonstrations before. Rodney King was before 9/11, I think. Yeah, absolutely, Phil. I always feel bad for the policemen. Of course, policemen who do things, in a racist way, they deserve whatever they get. But when you do see some police trying to restore law and order, and one of them gets caught out, separated from the rest of the group of policemen, and they get set upon, and they literally just pummel the guy to the floor. That's a family man. That's probably a father who's got little kids at home, and it's gut-wrenching to me when I see that. It's also equally gut-wrenching when I see the police walking down the street and with their batons drawn, and no matter who's there, it doesn't matter. It could be a mum walking a kid, it could be an old guy like that old man that we saw got pushed to the ground. It's all of it is just, I can't really describe it. It's gut-wrenching, all of it, on both sides. Yeah, I mean, it's social media, and if you say curly earpieces, yeah. I remember when we had riots here, it was all over Facebook and things like that, where Facebook got a lot of criticism that it was being used as a means of communication. I think it was Blackberries actually. It was BlackBerry messaging because it's encrypted. I think that was criticism at the time. They used Blackberries for um, putting together a revolution, if you like. I'm smoking a Ramon Iones specially selected. It's actually been a very enjoyable cigar. It's about a year and a half old, but nevertheless, it's still really good. Been very enjoyable. I was doing a drive on Friday. I actually recorded a long. Um, I actually recorded a long video, almost half an hour, and went through a lot of topics. I haven't actually uploaded it, and usually when I pass the date, I like to upload the day that I make the video, because a day or two later, sometimes it's out of sequence. But I might still upload it. I'll see. I'll have to listen back to it. But I talked a lot about the coronavirus, about how here in the UK how we handled it. Monte Cristo number four is our classic, and one of the topics which I was talking about is why here in the UK we got it so wrong. At the moment, we're still having deaths. We're having more deaths per day than the whole of Europe combined. I remember it right at the beginning, just before they announced the lockdown, when it was kind of in the offing and we were expecting the lockdown. They were saying that if we don't do the lockdown, potentially the experts, the scientists, the so-called experts, they were saying that if we don't address it, we could end up with as many as 500,000 people dying. And if we do the lockdown, they were anticipating that if we can keep it to 20,000 deaths, it would have been considered as a good job, which in itself sounds like a crazy thing to say. 20,000 deaths is a crazy number to say it's a good job, but now looking in retrospect with hindsight, 20,000 would have been a good job. We're over 40,000 now. That's crazy. And somebody called into the radio I was listening to. It does now. Italy does pale in comparison now. At the time, we were shocked when Italy was having its literally, like 1,000 deaths a day or something like that. We were completely shocked by it, and it happened here. We've gone more than them, and so somebody called in and said that Poland has 30 million population, and throughout the whole coronavirus, their death toll was around 700 in total. And Japan, which has 130 million population, they also had around the 700 death total. And they said the reason is because they all wore masks from the beginning. As soon as it happened, they had to, by law, wear masks. And in Japan, the reason is even though they have 130 million, they only had 700 because they wear masks as a matter of course. They have every year, when it comes to their fall, their winter, and the spring leading into the summer, they wear masks all the time. And that's why it didn't spread as much. And here we just, I don't know, the government just got it wrong. They tried, they thought the herd immunity would work. I think they just didn't realize what a killer this disease is. They thought it would be like flu or any of these kind of things where people would be able to handle it. They just didn't realize how efficient, is a bad word, but how deadly this virus is. And herd immunity was too much of a risk. And I think that's pretty much where they got it wrong. Yeah, I mean, the Far East certainly has had their fair share of viruses, and that's kind of forced them into that situation. And I think that will certainly, depending on how, um, depending on how this thing sticks around, I think that's going to be a new norm everywhere. It's a sensible thing to do. Mm. Her death is right. Yeah. It's. I still have this. I mentioned this on one of my drives in the past. You wake up in the morning, especially when it's in the springtime, beautiful sunny day. You wake up and you feel, oh, what a beautiful day, and then you just remember coronavirus, and it's just so surreal. You get those few seconds in the morning where everything seems bright and happy, and then you remember we're in the middle of this surreal situation, and it's just crazy. Hey Maui, it's only just now moved over to that, but we had a good tobacco discussion for the first couple of hours. And I did say goodbye about 20 minutes ago, but then Phil turned up, and I couldn't say goodbye once Phil turned up. It has, Cogs. Thanks very much. It's been very enjoyable. And I guess as long as this cigar is alive, we can carry on talking. I think in other times, there was a time a few weeks ago when people were sort of having a go at Boris Johnson, the way he's handled it. There was a time when I thought, well, he didn't start the virus. I mean, he's not. You can't hold him responsible for a virus. But now, looking back with hindsight, you do wonder if they could have taken a different direction, and a lot more people would have been saved. I went and got a test the other day, which came back negative, thankfully. So I'm glad that I thought that my taste and smell was starting to go again. Yes, Josh. At the moment, it's not biting me, so I'm smoking it like this. Well, that's one way to look at it, Phil. It's just a question of what it's giving you. Mm. One of the things I was talking about in that Friday drive was I think a lot of people at the onset of lockdown were very worried about being indoors for, which is now 8 weeks. Yeah, absolutely, Cogs and Sprockets. That's what I was meaning, that it's kind of a thankless task. You can't really blame it, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. Lots of learning, absolutely, Phil. So one of the things I was saying was that in the beginning, people were very worried that they're going to be stuck indoors with their partner and kids in the same, in the same four walls for weeks, days and days on end. People thought they'd go stir fry. I think a lot of people have learnt a lot. People thought there'd be loads of divorces and lots of abuse and all of that kind of thing. And that's certainly a worry about some people who perhaps sadly are in abusive relationships, or God forbid, children who are being abused. So that must be horrendous for some people, but hopefully that's a really small minority. But I think that people have really, children especially, they're so resilient. And my kids, I've got at the moment 5 kids at home, and yes, they have their sort of ups and downs, but generally speaking, it's been fine. It really has. Cheers, Maui. Hey, Pipe Man. Well, they're basically counting anybody that died with COVID-19 being a contributory factor. So yes, people who are old or people who had comorbidities or had other underlying issues, had they not got COVID-19, they wouldn't have died. They may have died at some point in the future, but COVID-19 is what their body was unable to fight as a result of their comorbidities, and therefore they died as a result of COVID-19. That's possible, Cogs and Sprockets. It is possible. People's frustrations have. This has been a release for them, but I think that people who use anarchy as a release are just anarchic type of people. I don't think it's an excuse. Nothing justifies the type of crimes that we've been seeing. Oh, that bowl's a little bit too wide. Perfect. The Northern Briars, Quebec. It does smoke very well like this, I must say. And it does also take away the heat a little bit. It does reduce the heat a little bit. I remember I once posted a picture of this on one of the Facebook groups, and I got those type of people we were talking about before, people who tell you how you must smoke a pipe, otherwise you're not a pipe smoker. And I got a lot of kickback from this, people offended by the fact that I put a cigar on a pipe. Yeah, no worries, Phil. I especially didn't say anything about it. I'm sure you'll do it whenever you're ready. No rush. Oh, thank you, Jimmy. I'll tell my wife. What it does do is it makes you draw on it more often than you would normally on a cigar. That's one thing I had to teach myself really early on when I smoked cigars, is to just take it slower. In a pipe, especially if you clench, you tend to chug on it a little bit more frequently. But a cigar, I've trained myself to really take it slow. But when it's in a pipe, it's harder to do that. Well, Pipes and Bees, I guess he didn't like to waste anything. As my father would say, waste not, want not. One of his sayings. My father was a war child, so no such thing as waste. 60 ring gauge, oh my gosh. My father is one of these kind of guys who he eats his meal very, very quickly. And my mother's always telling him, slow down, slow down. And he thinks that it's because when he was a little kid, growing up in the East End, food was hard to come by. And if you didn't eat your food straight away, somebody else nicked it off you. So he gulped it down quickly. Yeah, what's his name? Briar Boy, Aaron. He uses Meerschaum cigar holders quite a bit. Anyhow, it's 20 to 3 in the morning, so I'm going to say goodbye this time. Thanks, everybody. It's been a wonderful virtual get together. Yeah. I've not noticed that you get legacy sort of ghosting from cigars when you smoke them in a pipe. And the flavour profile is fairly middle of the road if you compare it to pipe tobacco. So there isn't really any danger of ghosting a pipe, I don't think. Nick Bretts, that's a new name. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. Hi, Busshog. All right, everybody. Thanks very much again for joining. Have a great week, and we'll see you the same time next week. All the best. Catch you on the next one.